and welcome back to another video. My name is Nicole and I sell vintage home decor on Etsy, and I also have a small booth at an antique mall. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 tips for starting an Etsy shop and selling vintage home decor online. It is a beautiful rainy day here in Florida today, and I just didn't want to be inside because it's so nice out, so we're going to be doing this video outside. Last week my shop hit 150 sales, and so I thought that this video would be a good way to celebrate. Today I'm going to share with you my top 10 tips for starting an Etsy shop and selling vintage home decor online. My first tip, and these are in no particular order, is to focus on quality over quantity. When you start your shop, it can be tempting to fill it up as quickly as possible. Something that I learned though, especially once I started selling full-time, is that there is a never-ending supply of good inventory. So I don't ever settle on items that I consider to be mediocre or that I only like a little bit. I would really challenge you to only source things that you really love and that you would have in your own home. If you don't source stuff that you love, you're not going to be as inspired to research, photograph, and list the items, which can lead to inventory piling up and stressing you out. Also, if items don't sell, then you're going to be left with a bunch of stuff that you don't even like. Tip number 2, put time and effort into defining your brand. The reason I sell on Etsy is because I'm able to price my items higher than they would be priced on eBay, Mercari, or Poshmark. And the reason for this is because Etsy, unlike other platforms, focuses on providing their customers with a curated shopping experience. If you have an aesthetic logo, brand colors, and high-end photos, it's going to give your shop a more high-end feel that will lead to more sales. I was getting blinded by the sun, so we've moved over a little bit. But an example of something that I do to help define my brand is to have a very standardized method to my photos. So all of my pictures have the same background, and even down to the intricate details, like with my jewelry. This ring I always put on this thumb to have in my photos when I'm holding something. And I know it seems silly, but I think that the pop of color just adds a nice touch. And any cover photo that has my hand in it will always have the same ring to just keep things consistent. Tip number 3 is to show your customers appreciation. Getting a sale from my shop is one of the best feelings ever, and I'm deeply appreciative of each person that supports my small business. And I want to make sure that appreciation is expressed. I include a thank you card in my order. I custom made thank you cards off of Canva, and I had them printed at Office Depot. It's really easy to do online. I also include a few stickers, and then sometimes I even include a free bonus item for really large orders. The reality of filming outside in Florida is that I keep having to move because the sun is blinding me. Because I'm able to source some of my items so cheap, it really is just a great opportunity to show my customers appreciation when they make a big purchase. And this is a good segue to my next point, which is to have good customer service. One thing I love about running a small business is that I get to control every aspect of my business, including conflict resolution. I can recall several times before starting my small business where I had frustrating experiences shopping on Etsy or Amazon or other online platforms. When it comes to conflict resolution, my goal is to treat others the way that I would want to be treated. One of the first issues I ever had arise while running my Etsy shop, and there have been quite a few since this one. It's just part of owning a small business. But the first time I ever ran into an issue was when I sold a wooden accordion peg rack. And when my customer received it in the mail, she was unhappy with the item and thought that it was flimsy and it just wasn't as sturdy as she was expecting it to be. I do allow returns on my shop within 14 days, so she could have sent the item back, but she would have had to pay for postage, and that was an item that I had purchased for 99 cents. So I messaged her and I let her know, like, don't worry about sending it back, just keep it and I'll give you the full refund. And just doing small things like that really helps alleviate frustration. It's something that was so easy for me to do in terms of refunding the item, and I know it makes a big difference for the customer. And like I said, one thing I love about selling vintage items is that the overhead is really low. For me at least, it's usually about $1 to $5 on each item, so this allows me to be very generous in terms of accepting returns and just conflict resolution in general. Tip number 5 is to get organized. If you are just starting out, managing and organizing your inventory will go a long way to help you find items after they've been ordered, so you don't have to spend hours digging through bins and stacks to try to find what you're looking for. It might not seem important when you have less than 100 items in your inventory, and it really isn't at that point, but once you start scaling past those first 100 items, you are going to get overwhelmed very quickly if you don't have a good organization system for your inventory. You're also going to want to make a spreadsheet to track all of your costs for your business, so the costs for each item and any costs like bubble wrap, tape, boxes, even your mileage. You're going to want to keep track of all that stuff. And of course, you'll want to hold on to all your receipts. Having an organized spreadsheet for your items also helps to calculate your profit margins so you can determine how much money you're making. Tip number 6 is to keep inventory moving and don't let things sit. If you come home from the thrift store and put all your stuff on the ground and ignore it for a week, by the time you get to it, you're going to forget when you bought those items, and in general, it's just not going to be great for your mental clarity and sanity to have things piling up. My personal rule is to process any inventory I have within the first 24 hours after purchasing it. And what I mean by processing is taking the tags off of everything, putting the cost of the items and all of those details into my spreadsheet, and cleaning the items. This way, when I want to do more listings or photograph my items, they are ready to be photographed and everything is easy to do. Everyone will have their own time frame with this. Some people give themselves a week, some people do it the same day. I like to do 24 hours, so determine what works best for you. Tip number 7 is to learn from other resellers or to study. If you're watching my video right now, chances are you probably watch other resellers on YouTube as well. I spend a lot of time watching videos of other resellers to kind of study items, to learn what items are popular and what I should be looking for at the thrift store. My favorite reseller to watch is Andy from All Put Together. She is honestly the person that inspired me to start my Etsy business. She's the reason that I discovered reselling, and I would highly recommend her videos. Tip number 8 might be controversial, but it is to not run sales. Of course, this is totally up to each individual seller, but I would recommend to not run sales on your Etsy shop. In my opinion, running sales trains your customer to wait until you offer your items at a cheaper price. Instead, I would much prefer to just price my items reasonably and to not run sales. Speaking of which, tip number 9 is related to pricing. Do research and make sure you're pricing your items reasonably. Google Lens is a great resource. You can look up an item and then go to old Etsy posts to see how much they sold for. You can look on eBay and other platforms. It's a really great resource. Also, I've noticed if you use ChatGPT tends to really undervalue my items, and I end up selling them for sometimes even double what ChatGPT recommended I list the item for. So I would not rely on ChatGPT as a good resource for pricing. I use it for a lot of other things though, like descriptions and SEO terms and tags and stuff like that. I also think it's important to understand that low pricing can devalue your shop. I know it seems counterintuitive, but sometimes if you aren't getting enough sales, slightly increasing your prices might increase the amount of sales that you're getting. Assuming you're still pricing your items within a reasonable spectrum, pricing on the higher end can make someone feel like they are buying something that's more valuable. If you price an item super cheap, so say you have something that's worth $40 and you price it for $18, that can communicate to your customer that the item is cheap, or it's maybe not as good quality as a similar item that's being sold by someone else at a higher price point. Also, sorry about my chickens. If you're doing research on an item and you discover that maybe the item is worth around $80, say you have a really nice needlepoint pillow that you thought would be worth like $30, but it's actually worth around $80. That might seem crazy to you, but also consider your geographical location. Spoon, knock it off. A large portion of my orders come from New York and California, where the cost of goods is much higher than they are here in Florida. So some prices that seem outrageous to me are considered reasonable to those shoppers. My last tip today, tip number 10, is to not be afraid to negotiate pricing even at the thrift store. Before I started my Etsy shop, I wouldn't dare to ask for a lower price on something at the thrift store or at an estate sale. But once I started my business, I was able to justify negotiating because it was for my business. Hey, spoon, scar, knock it off. You will be shocked at how many places will accept you negotiating with their items. Even a lot of antique malls actually have rules where if a customer asks for a discount, the vendors must accept a 10% discount on their goods. So that's pretty crazy, and that can make a big difference if you're buying something expensive, or if you're buying a large bundle of items. That's a good opportunity to ask for a lower price. Don't be afraid to negotiate. Thank you so much for watching. Those are all of my tips for you if you are thinking about starting an Etsy business or you just started reselling. I am getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, so that is my sign to end this video. If I missed any tips, feel free to leave them down below, and yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.